Welcome. What I'm going to do today is show you how to graph in Microsoft Excel on a Mac. Make sure that your Excel is as wide as your entire screen. Okay, don't make it any less than your entire screen because you'll see as I shrink the width, the number of buttons present will decrease. So I want your Microsoft Excel to look exactly like mine. Make it full screen width. To generate a graph, we need data. I have data already input right here. I just clicked and highlighted those. I'm going to format it real quick because I like to make sure my work looks nice. I might want to paste this into a Word document or a Google document or something like that, and it needs to be attractive. It needs to look nice so that the reader stays interested. All right. I went ahead, I centered everything, I bolded the titles, I put a little background on behind the titles, not too dark or anything like that, and then I also put borders on everything. So it's going to look nice. We'll be able to copy and paste that later on pretty seamlessly and not have to do any extra work to it. So let's get to the point. Let's go ahead and graph this thing. All right. We don't need to highlight anything at all, but we do need to click on Charts. I'm going to make a scatter plot right now, a marked scatter. We're going to be graphing this mass and volume data. For me, nothing shows up in my chart area right now, which is perfectly fine. If there was anything, I'd end up deleting it anyways. Once we've got our chart area, look up here. There should be a little select button. Okay, click on that one. If there was information already graphed, it would show that there's a couple of series here. You might need to click remove a few times if there's information there. Since there's no information there, I'm just going to go ahead and click on Add. I'm going to make my first series. All right. There's only going to be one for this graph. You can see we've got X values and Y values that we're going to need to input. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. The X values, just click on this little icon and highlight the X values you want. In this case, volume is what we want plotted on the X axis. Do not select the title volume, just select the values 5 through 50. Just click and drag. The Y values that I want are going to be my masses, so I'm going to click this button to jump to my spreadsheet and highlight 2.1 all the way down to 20.3. Click the little icon to jump back and forth. Say OK, ready to go. You can see it's going to automatically put some information in there. It's going to automatically graph for me, which is nice. The only thing is, we have no main or axis titles. We've got to get some formatting stuff going on. Over here in Chart Quick Layouts, click the to the right button and find Layout 9. Select Layout 9. Layout 9 doesn't have everything we want. It's not perfect, but it gets us pretty close. So I always use Layout 9. The rest of the time of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to format this graph. So I'm going to move this graph so we can see it better. Two-finger click. Take 2 fingers, click on your mouse pad, say Move Chart to a new sheet, and you could call this density graph because that's basically what we're making is a density graph. Okay. Down here you can see we can jump back to sheet 1 where our data is, or we can jump to our density graph. The first thing, I'm going to eliminate a few features of layout number 9 that I don't like. These grid lines, I don't like them. I select them and I delete them. Grid lines, select them and delete them. I don't need grid lines. You probably don't either. You see this is 20, this is a little more than 20. See this is 15, that's a little less than 15. All right, we don't need exact numbers. If I need exact numbers, sheet 1, our data table, that's where exact numbers come into play. In addition, we only graphed one thing. We graphed mass and volume data, so we do not need a legend. If I had a bunch of different densities that I was going to graph, a bunch of different masses and volumes of different objects, then maybe I would need a legend, but I don't need a legend for this, so I'm going to delete it. Next, order of business. You're probably squinting, you can barely tell that says axis title. Maybe you could barely tell that said 15 or 20. So we need to change font sizes on everything. What I like to do is start with the biggest thing, the chart title. Click on the little home button and make that chart title large. I typically make my chart titles 36. My axis titles I almost always make them about 28 or so. This one's going to be the same size, so I'm just going to press Command Y, and it'll just redo that format for me. My numbers, my values on my Y and X axis, I'm going to change those to something relatively large as well. I'll go 20 here, and Command Y for my X axis, and for my trend line, Command Y. All right, I'm going to move that guy out of the way. And we're looking pretty good. We're getting close now. The next order of business is to just get my scales appropriate. You can see this scale on the x-axis rather goes up to 60, but I'm pretty sure my largest number is 50. Let me double check. Yes, it is. My largest number here for volume is 50. So I'm going to fix that real quick. I'm going to select one of the numbers. Just click it once. And two-finger click, you're not going to be able to see it, so I have to go the roundabout way to get there. All right, select the value and go to Format. We're looking at the current selection, our horizontal axis. Okay, we're going to click on Format Selection. And what I want to change is the scale of my graph. The maximum value, I don't want it to be 60, I want it to be 50. And click on OK. You're going to see that it automatically changes the maximum value of my graph to be 50. In addition, over here, it goes up to 25, but my maximum mass is only 20.3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this. All right, Format Selection, the maximum value, I'm going to change to be 21. All right. It automatically changed it to have a -4 value, so I'm going to force that to be 0. Excel is silly sometimes, and now it's fixed. Okay, now we're rolling. Basically, the reason why I changed those two things is to make the data emphasized as much as possible. All right, I want readable titles and readable values here on my X and Y axis. But this data should be taking up the most of the space. All right, so that's why I did that. The next thing we should do, format-wise, before I start changing content, is give a little bit of background to my chart. I'm going to go ahead and two-finger click outside of the data area, but format chart area. I'm going to make a fill. And I used this same color on my data table, so I'm going to keep it the same. I'm not going to go crazy and do some, sorry. I'm not going to do something crazy and do like some bright pink or bright green or anything offensive. Just simple colors that aren't too dark, aren't too bright. All right. It can be pink, but it's got to be a light pink. It can be purple, but it's got to be a light purple. It can be gray, but it's got to be a light gray, all right, so that you can read everything easily and so that things print easily. Sometimes people want to print your work. In addition, I want to put a line around the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and click on, get that chart area out of the way. There we go. Click the little down arrow for line. I'm going to put a black line around my entire chart. For this guy, I'm going to put a black line around my chart area. Maybe. Put a black line on it. There we go. Now I got a black line around my chart area. In addition, we got little tick marks here. Make sure that you can see those tick marks. That automatically made them gray. You can't read them when they're gray. You can't see those tick marks very well when they're gray. So I'm going to make them black. All right. And now everything's legible. So all I got to do is change my axis titles and my main title. Go ahead and click on that, and this would be the density of, for me, substance X, because I got some weird substance, who knows what it is, I just made up numbers. You would have density of water. Sorry about that. On the y-axis, what we plotted was mass in units of grams. Make sure you include the units anytime you can. Cancel. Delete that stuff. And on the x-axis, we've got volume in milliliters. Again, make sure you always include units. All right. Make sure our trend lines is on our graph relatively prominently. We'll go over what this equation means and what this r squared value means later on, but everything is looking good right now. One more thing, okay, almost forgot. We're going to take our trend line and we're going to format our trend line. So click on that little line, two-finger click, format trend line. And we want to go to options, and we can forecast our trend line forward and backward. There we go. Forward, send it backward. You can see over here I can extend it, or I don't need to. Basically, it's telling you how many units. Each period is another unit on my x-axis. So when I click all the way up to 5, sends it all the way back to 0 because my first volume was 5 milliliters. So 5 units backward sends it to the 0 mark. All right. And if I move this guy out of the way, we can see that if I forecast it forward, it's actually extending it past my graph. So we're going to decrease it back down to 0. We don't have to extend it forward at all. All right. And I'm going to click on OK. All right. And now my graph's looking pretty good. Just some extra information. If you need to move this into a Word document, copy it right here, paste it as a picture. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you don't paste it as a picture, you're gonna lose all this work that you did to format this and make it look nice. When you paste it as a picture, it'll retain the formatting, it'll retain the scaling, and it'll look nice, and it'll stay looking nice, and you won't be able to mess any of your work up, which is nice. That's all I've got for you today. Good luck, and if you have questions, ask, but I think this is pretty comprehensive. Thanks again.